Yay, I think we're live, everyone.
We're on.
Okay, brilliant. And I'm just going to mute my computer and I think we're ready to rock. How are you both faring today?
Very good.
Yeah, good, thank you. How's our sound? Is it okay? Do we have an echo?
I don't hear an echo here. How's everyone faring? Let us know what you can hear. If you can hear everyone clearly, give us a shout.
I see hearts.
Yay, I see hearts too. So we are on the final day today of my series, Conversations with Women in Music. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to be with two women who are such great inspirations to me. We have an incredible artist, singer-songwriter, producer, actor, Markéta Irglová. And Markéta is actually the first Czech woman to win an Oscar, and at 19 years old became the youngest person to win an Oscar in a musical category. Markéta's in band the Swell season and co-wrote and wrote many of the songs for the film Once, and also for her own incredible solo albums. I'm a big fan of both Muna and Anar. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. And also we have Charley Webb of the harmony duo, the Webb sisters, my sister, my great inspiration. And Charley has been in the music industry for nearly 25 years. Alongside Hattie, Charley has made albums and EPs of their own music through Mercury and Universal Records and Proper, and through their own label, and also enjoying co-producing their songs. As the Webb sisters, we spent 6 years touring internationally in Leonard Cohen's band, singing and playing guitar and harp, and in 2017 with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. One of the great joys has been for both of us to collaborate with other artists, and we're just so overjoyed to be here today with Markéta. Thank you so much, you both. Charley and Markéta, welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So it being International Women's Day, I'd love to start with a female-focused question. Can I ask you both the women who have inspired you, both personally and also professionally and creatively? How do we go? Who shall I ask first? Because I'm both so excited to hear both of your answers. Okay. Okay, Charley.
Well, I think there's a bunch of female artists that have inspired me musically over the years, and we're all here as musicians, so I guess I'll kick off there. But firstly, so happy to be here. So lovely to see you both. It's been over a year, I think, since we all met up, and last year kind of doesn't really count, I feel like, because nobody could really go anywhere or do anything. So it's so nice to see you both. I remember years ago, Hats, when we used to sing. We used to write out in our notebooks all the lyrics that we would hear in some of our favourite songs, get many of them wrong because we'd be rewinding on the tape player and just like saying, what was that word? What was that snippet? And trying to figure out what all these lyrics were, and then we'd figure out who would do which part. And one of our friends sent us this tape with a bunch of songs by the Indigo Girls. And at that point, we'd already been singing together for, kind of a long time. We were teenagers and we'd done a lot of choral singing. And I feel like the Indigo Girls was the first time we sang along to modern, folky, harmony songs that had two lead voices, in a way. Up till then, we'd sung loads of our favourite songs, but it was like we'd have one person singing the melody and then the other one would fill in. And then when I was about 19, I was trying to find bits of myself, I guess, at that part of my life when I was abroad. And I had to do a long drive to get to a concert, and I borrowed a friend of a friend's car, and it didn't have a tape player. And a friend of mine said, here's a tape player from the bathroom, and here's some mixtapes, which I didn't have with me. And one mixtape that he gave me was, on one side, all Alison Krauss, and the other side, all Sheryl Crow. And I terribly dangerously held the tape player between my knees whilst driving for this 6 hours to get to Wisconsin. And I think actually that was the only mixtape I had on that drive, and it really sticks with me because I had to really get into the songs deeply. That was all I had. And I remember that those two women, I felt like they were two very different voices, and yet I felt like I heard myself in what they had to say and how they resonated. And I guess both of those examples are from a long time ago, but they still, all of those four amazing women, they still really inform now on some of my music joys and choices.
That's incredible. I love that story. I remember you arriving. It was a really long drive with balancing the tape cassette on your lap, wasn't it, the whole way?
Yeah, I was going to an Anne Murray concert. And opening for Anne Murray, I wonder if anybody has heard of this guy. His name was Craig Carruthers, a singer-songwriter, and he opened, and he was incredible, really gravelly and husky and strong, and had really emotive songs. So if you get the chance and you don't already know him, whoever's listening, check out Craig Carruthers.
Was it? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
I was just going to say there was one song, Little Hercules, I still remember. Really worth listening.
I remember it with the, if you feel the weight of the world, set your mind at ease, little Hercules. Was that it?
That's it.
I remember it. Thanks so much, Char. And Ma, over to you with some of your influences of women in music or personally.
Yes. I have my biggest inspiration has always been this one thing, actually, if I think about it. It was something that I discovered when I was very little. I was 4, and it was Easter, and I was at home in my parents' house, and this movie came on, and it was very unusual. I remember that it was very different to the other things I had seen on TV, and I was really captivated by it. Everybody was singing and kind of dancing. It was people that were dressed differently, and they were in the middle of the desert, and I was just so captivated by it. And my parents wanted to turn it off because it wasn't exactly children's material, but I was just like, please, I want to watch it. And it was Jesus Christ Superstar, the film. And I just remember being like watching these people, and instead of talking, they were singing, and that was such a new concept to me, and I just couldn't believe what I was watching, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And it had sort of captured me so much that I remember my parents had found, I think they had somehow managed to tape the music, onto cassettes as well. And I just learned all the songs to sing along, even though I didn't speak any English. And I sort of fell in love with the Jesus character, and I imagined that I was Mary Magdalene, and I just kept playing out the scenes. And it really amazed me, like when I realized recently how little I was, because in my memory I was older, but it had sort of set me on this course of, I didn't know anything about Christianity because my parents weren't religious, but I would draw these pictures of Jesus on the cross and then Mary Magdalene sort of beside him, and sort of enter this world of, I think in my imagination I had sort of went in there, and I was sort of always thinking about it and thinking about the music, and just feeling, even though I didn't understand the words, I could just feel the emotions in the music. And I think that's what I found so amazing, that you could communicate emotions that I didn't even have at the time, but just I could feel love. I think that was actually my introduction to love, this music and the Jesus and Mary Magdalene singing to each other, and then Jesus and Judas, they had love as well, very different. And then all the apostles and Jesus, this thing had stayed with me since, and to this day it's still the favorite sort of body of music for me to listen to and go back to. And today I sort of appreciate it from a different perspective altogether. But just, I went and I listened to her name, the woman who played Mary Magdalene, her name was Yvonne Elliman. And I, at some point when I was living in New York, I had found like a gramophone, record of her solo album, and she was sort of dressed, like very different. I just couldn't. To me, I was just like, nope, I don't want to know. To me, she's Mary Magdalene, and all that music is just, in a way, I kind of, I don't want to know any of her other music because I want to keep her in that world,
Yeah.
But later it was Joni Mitchell and Kate Bush, I think, were the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I can hear those voices in, as a thread through some of the things that you've expressed, I think, on your records and when you sing live. And,
Amazing.
we're all here today, and we're, I think, similar ages, and we've had different experiences individually and things, but I feel like I want to share that even though we've had lots of chats before, I don't think we've ever mentioned, Ma, that when you won your Oscar for Falling Slowly, which was just so awesome. Hattie and I always, for many years, we would have an Oscar party and we'd watch it live. When we lived in LA, we'd watch it live there, and then in the UK, we'd either stay up or we'd get together early the next morning and watch it on some random link on YouTube or whatever. But we were watching it live, and we were like crazy, like bursting over the fact that you were winning. We'd watched the movie, we'd howled and cried. We watching you write all those songs in that movie and then sing them so incredibly. We were just so inspired by you. We ended up going home and writing a song that day that we watched it together, which is on one of our albums, a song called Yours Truly. And then cut to us watching you win the Oscar. We're like, no! When it cuts off, because we were like hanging on a thread to hear what you had to say. And we were screaming and shouting at the screen like, no, this can't be happening.
Why?
Cut to a commercial break, and then they brought you back on. We were like, yes! Yes! And you just came over to the microphone so eloquently, not looking like you had been like gut punched, which is what we were thinking, this can't be happening. And you came so eloquently over to the mic and just said this completely beautiful, incredible speech. And then they were all crying again. And I just wanted to say we were so proud and so inspired by you then and now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In fact,
go ahead.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Ma?
No, I was just going to say that is still the highlight probably of my life, besides, the birth of my children. Career speaking, I mean, I remember the moment that, like, because I didn't have a speech prepared, my dynamic and Glenn's dynamic was that he did most of the talking and he sort of carried the energy on stage, and I was playing the supportive role, which is actually, the role women play a lot of the time, which is beautiful. I mean, personally, I really, really like that role. I love being in the background, sort of adding color and sort of beauty to things and softness. And so it was kind of in the spirit of that, we had agreed that if we should win, which we really thought very unlikely, that Glenn would say something, and that I would just say thank you. And I was just coming to say thank you to the microphone. I did not even notice that it was off, because I was just so thrilled and in another world. And then when I was asked to go back on stage, I think I would have said yes to anything at that point, because I felt so high on the energy of it. So yeah, sure, I'll go back on stage. And then when I was walking to the microphone for a little moment, because it only took a few seconds between the backstage and the microphone, but I had this memory of like time stretching a little bit, as if everything went a little bit into slow motion. And I just kind of went like, what am I going to say? And then I decided to just try to communicate, from the heart what I felt. And the feeling is kind of like, I felt connected to every person in the audience and to every person at home watching it. It was such an incredible moment, besides winning the award, that is one of the times I've really understood what oneness means, like when it's talked about from a Buddhist perspective or like a spiritual perspective. I really sort of got it on that day, what it means to feel connected to every person, and it really has followed me ever since, that, and inspires me in my music. And it just reminds me of what we're capable of doing, when we transcend that sort of level and we just go right into sort of pure connection and heart, So I think that was the single most inspiring moment for me because of that. And I'm so happy to like hear you guys, to know that even then we were connected, and all these years later we met, and how beautiful is that?
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. If I may just quote a little bit of your speech, because I listened again today, and part of your speech you said, this song was written from a perspective of hope, and hope at the end of the day connects us all, no matter how different we are. For you to channel that truth and energy in the moment, it's so extraordinary.
Yeah, especially as that was a moment where you were speaking exactly, what came out of your heart. And funny you should say that, Hat, because I played the speech today to my two daughters, and we were talking about Ma, and how when you did that speech, you really reached around the world to not only artists, as you said in your speech, but I feel like to girls and women, because in so many of the big Bing Bang Boom award shows, it's men, or historically, even not that long ago, it was often more men winning for the big awards that could have gone to either gender at that time, before we were more educated to know there was more than two. You lifted everybody up with what you said. And I saw on here that there are notes from other people, and one person typed on the Instagram live, I tear up every time. And I do too, because I teared up. Hope.
Yes, and that's a very, very important thing for us to feel, I think. Like, I tear up every time, like, I watch a Disney movie, basically. I cry from the beginning to end, because all Disney movies, if you think about it, are like that. They're about hope, and they're about, especially lately, I'm so amazed by the animation, the messages that are in there, and everything seems to be pointing towards like connection and focusing on what we have in common rather than what our differences, whether it be color of skin or culture or women, men, boys, girls, and just realizing that we're stronger together, like that people who would have at one point, they would have been portrayed, because even in Disney, like not so many years ago, was representing the sort of duality of our world. There was the bad guys and there was the good guys. And now recently I've noticed this shift, that even the bad guys have some sort of a backstory now that helps the audience to understand why they are the way they are, and that it comes from some sort of a pain or bitterness that is unresolved. And and it sort of give them more complexity, and sort of it doesn't condemn them to being bad for the rest of time. It sort of gives them there's always some sort of like opportunity for them to redeem themselves. And I find that so empowering, because I think we really, really need that at the moment, to sort of because even as it is about the women, feminine and masculine women and men, for me the answer has never been that the world is broken because men have been in charge, even though it is a little bit, but the answer isn't necessarily that women are supposed to be in charge instead. It's just, I feel like we need balance, and we need to sort of put our sort of strengths together, to work together, rather than it being always like a struggle, and that feeling of like every time I, because I do get a little bit worried. I have children, and I think like, where's the world going? There's things that worry me, the environment, and politicians who always let us down, and the lack of like really empowered sort of leaders and all of that, and then things like that give me hope, and light, that just sort of shine a little bit of just like, yes, we are actually, we were destined for more, and that it's not all lost, and that it's not all that complicated, that we just need to rise and help each other rise, men, women, like west, east, it doesn't matter. And that's, I really, really try and communicate that through my work, I think. And I'm drawn to artists who do that. And I'm not very good necessarily of knowing, every all the names of all the people around the world that are doing this, but I feel like whenever I meet them, like your guys, there is a certain sort of recognition of like, we're on the same sort of wavelength or something. And it's kind of like, I feel like the family always expands, like when I met you guys, it was like gaining two sisters, and kind of like it's a beautiful feeling that I think I love that even more than I love making music, this feeling of the community kind of strengthening and growing. I find that really inspiring.
So beautiful. I really love what you said, Ma, about there being some kind of acknowledgement for someone's backstory or their history. And I think that's something that I've really learned so much more about in recent times. I've been volunteering for a domestic abuse charity in the UK called AFTER, and they do incredible work with families, supporting people in times of need. And they also collaborate with a charity called For Baby's Sake. And it's an amazing charity that supports parents in the first 3 years after the baby's been born. And it takes both partners to sign on for support and to recognize there might be some form of violence or domestic abuse going on, and that they're recognizing it's happening and they want to change the narrative. And the charity will support them throughout pregnancy for the first 3 years. And that gives me such hope, because it's not just pointing a finger at someone and saying, you're wrong. It's supporting someone who's saying, I'm struggling. And I think if as a culture and if as a community, we can support each other more in troubled times, then it gives us that hope, that we also, that's such an oxygen for us. So I really love that that's happening in cartoons, and that narrative is being present for children today. Because I think, when we were children, it was a little bit more, the baddie is just bad and there's no saving them. And hopefully they'll die at some point in the, in the cartoon. But actually to acknowledge that humanity is actually about finding a way to be present for each other and know that no one's perfect. I loved how you described, Ma, about being a supportive singer. And I'd love to check in with both of you, because both of you are two of my idols in harmony singing and support singing. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit, Ma, about singing with Glenn, because I know Glenn's got this really powerful voice. He doesn't even need a microphone half of the time. How did you find a way to blend and hear yourself and stay grounded in your sound when you're singing with him?
It did take me some time to learn to sing, to use my voice in a way that was stronger, because and also just, yeah, I had to sort of bring myself up to match him if it was going to work. And he was always really good about giving me space, but at the same time, he's just, when he's in his element, he's not really thinking about his volume necessarily, So singing with him really, really helped me to strengthen my voice in a different way than, for example, singing in a choir would have, because I used to sing in a choir before I met him. That was the singing that I did. And in a choir, it's all about, singing in a way that you don't stand out and to create sort of like a body of sound rather than your voice being heard. And then singing with Glenn had taught me how to project my voice in a way that it could sort of be heard even when other people are singing. And that was a really, really valuable lesson, even though I don't necessarily sing like that when I sing on my own. But it did, the voice is kind of like in any other instrument, that it has so many different tones and colors, and when you try it to sort of expand it does change and becomes gains new tones that you didn't even know it had.
That's so interesting. So would you choose particular notes that would resonate? I notice sometimes your parts, you shift. So Glenn will go up and you will go down,
yeah, Glenn just sings what he wants to sing. It was my job to find a way to fit in sort of around that, and sort of mostly it worked for me to do like a harmony up, but every now and then he really loved just climbing there himself, and then I would drop down. So yeah, he was a big teacher of mine when it comes to singing.
It's incredible. And Char, for you, you've sung in choir to begin with, brilliant choir singer, and then solo, and then in the supportive role to other male artists and female artists. So what's been your experience of harmony singing, and where do you find your place?
I think one of my most exciting feelings, whether it's studio or live, is when there's a feeling and a sound, not necessarily a part. And we've done a lot of structured singing, which I love, but I enjoy so much when we get in the studio, when we're collaborating with somebody else, for instance. We get in the studio and we know their song, and we've probably done some preparation, and we've got some parts that we think will work. And then when we get into the space where we are experiencing the song in our bodies, and then we do these swells or just noises together, and then we love working with this amazing engineer in London called Darren Heelis, and we collaborate with him on, can you do something like this on the sound, and then he will make our voices into, I guess, more like a feeling or a noise that really resonates. And I think that's one of my favorite things, when it becomes the texture of the song and not necessarily a voice singing some words. But I also love more conventional singing parts, and I'm definitely more confident singing as a texture voice. And yet when we sing live and I'm in the moment and I'm not in my head and I'm in my body, I feel one of my most powerful, and I feel like I can sing with a strength that I didn't know that I had, and I can shock myself. And I'm so grateful for those moments. And if I think about something for too long, that power disappears and I'm a squeaky mouse. But bye-bye, squeaky mouse, and hello. Hello.
I've never heard you a squeaky mouse. I've always heard you amazing.
But yeah, you know how sometimes when we're doing a gig where, I mean, you both know how you can sometimes do a gig and the sound really throws you off and you're like, I'm going to get into the emotion of the gig as best I can, but you really hear a lot of the resonances in the monitor that is like, oh, that doesn't make me feel the emotion of the music. It just makes me feel like I'm trying to sing well. And then you have those gigs where the voices and the music is soaring above the room and anything can happen, and then you're just an explosion of colour on the stage with the other musicians, and then you're just experiencing it esoterically and not I don't know, I suppose the live experience is so different from the studio experience, but both of them offer really wonderful things for singing in combination with other people. And yeah.
So interesting. I mean, I have witnessed you singing in all different environments, but to hear you talk about it's really wonderful. And it's something I've felt over this week doing these conversations. Like, I've learned so much, and to connect and hear about other people's experiences has really made me feel more connected. And I've really loved that. It being International Women's Day and celebrating women and mothers today, I'd love to ask a little bit about your experiences being mothers and being artists, and finding ways to have creativity running through your life and balancing personal needs and also family life. I know it's not a straight road, and perhaps I could ask you both to share a little bit about your experiences.
Well, I found that it took me some time, you know, I remember that when I had my first baby, I didn't really write at all for about a year, maybe even 2. And I didn't even really want to, you know, it was also new for me to becoming a mom, and I really was very much in it and sort of enjoying it and struggling with it too. And then by the time I had my third baby, I was writing, you know, for the whole of the pregnancy. I was writing like mad for you know, the first year of my son's life. You know, something did change there for me somehow. And I think it was the figuring out, you know, how I can balance those two out, because it didn't come necessarily all that naturally. And what I had realized was that because in the beginning I had a piano in my home, and you know, every time I sat at it, the children would just come and they'd take over. And so when I gained like a creative space to just go to, and when I was, you know, which was our studio that we built, my husband and I, when I had that and my piano was here, and I found that I can just when I went at the piano and I sat down, I wasn't thinking about I've got to do the laundry, or you know, there's dishes in the sink. We weren't living in the studio, so there was nothing else to do but to be creative. And there wasn't the option of letting myself feel guilty for not doing, you know, something on my list. You know, as all women know, like when you have a home and children and you're running a household, there's always a list of things that need to get done. And so it's a total must for me to have a space which is only dedicated to being creative, and it's mine, and there's nobody coming in to mess it up. You know, I can have my candles and I can have my flower pot, and there's nobody coming to sort of destroy my little station. And that really, really helped. And I found that in the end, when I embraced it, you know, motherhood helped me go deeper into the music and into the lyrics, because I had to, you know, it felt strange to, even think about writing about the same things I had been writing about before I had children, because I was experiencing completely different things, and my world had changed so hugely, and I have changed a lot. I realized that I wasn't the woman, or even I saw myself as I was a girl, to a large extent, and then I became a woman when I became a mother, and I had to get to know myself. I had to get to know my body again, and I had to it deepened me somehow, and it deepened my work as well. And I see a great benefit in it now. But I think it's one of those things that, like, without embracing it, I think it would prove very, very challenging, actually.
Mm. And how do you technically carve out those times? Do you say to your husband, do you schedule it, or do you say, this afternoon, can you take over? I need an hour or two, or...
Yeah, well, actually, I'm really lucky in that way, in that I just arrange my working day according to when the children are in school, in preschool. So I have from 9 to 4, and that all of that time is for me to write or record, or do anything really that I want. Because part of being creative is also having time to just go for a walk, or read a book. That's a really, really, really big part.
Has Iceland been in lockdown? Have the children been able to be at school?
Yes, we're really lucky that way. The school closed for a little bit last spring, and then since then it's just been open all of the time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the way we did it, me and my husband, because in the initial sort of wave of COVID, we were scared and we didn't know how serious it was. So we had decided to take our children out of the school before it closed. And we just took turns. I had one day, the next day he went, or we did half days, and that proved to work really well, actually.
Yeah.
It is, unfortunately, as much as I think artists, we love having things fluid and being able to be spontaneous and being able to just sort of go with the flow. But yes, having a family, it takes organization, and it really helps when there is kind of a routine, because everybody seems to feel better in it, which is one of the sort of surprising things that I thought. And I've seen artistic people sort of have children, and they stay up late and they sort of travel, but it really doesn't seem to make them happy at all. So at least not, it doesn't work for my kids anyway. I mean,
No.
maybe some people manage to make it work, but yeah, I love knowing that I have this time and tomorrow is waiting for me again, and that really makes me feel better.
Can I chime in, Hats, and ask Mark?
Please.
One of the things that I struggle with is I might have that time at some point, whatever day that is. How do you stop yourself from getting swamped with the business side of things, which I think can just suck everything away? Like, there are emails that are not responded to, things that you're meant to have taken care of. And that is one of the biggest challenges for me, children or no children. Like, you're talking about having these times during the day. Do you allocate some time in there to do emails, or do you just do bits as you go? Because I find that it does really interfere with my artistry, and I wonder, for both of you, how you take care of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I have to say I do very little of that, because I don't like it so much. I tend to, but at the same time, everything that I know I must do and I'm not doing, and I know I'm putting off, it does press on my mind a lot. So I think it's really helpful to get that out of the way first, but not to get sort of stuck in it. They end up doing hours and hours and hours of it, but just doing a little bit every day, and you just like, today I'm just gonna do this much, and then the rest is tomorrow or the next day, and then having the rest of the time to just sit at the piano or with a guitar and sing. But I always also feel like when I sit with an instrument, I'm not always inspired to to write something, you know, and it feels like by now I can sort of tell when I'm in the, you know, because the way I look at songwriting is kind of like channeling anyway, you know, the kind of writing I'm interested in is when I feel that something else has come into the room, and I'm just sort of, you know, trying to capture it basically. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it isn't, and even when it isn't, I love just tinkering around on my instrument, you know. But then every now and then that also just feels like I've had enough of that and I'm ready to do some of the practical stuff so I can sleep better at night.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Hat? How do you do that then? You're so... I like your improv videos that you do, and I know that you spend a lot of time playing the harp, and, you know, it's like another physical thing right there that you can practically bump into it. So as you're bumping into it, you play, you know, which is just so lovely. I feel like... Can you explain how you end up having the harp so much, you know, in the centre of your life and less the computer or the phone?
I have to admit that recently I haven't really touched my harp much because I've been trying to get to a place with this album where I can put it out and finish it. And I've had quite a few hats on with co-producer, organizer, manager, and artist. And so I've felt quite overwhelmed recently with juggling all of that. And so I found that I've been less creative because I've been a bit overwhelmed with that. And so I've learned something, that for me to bring a body of work to fruition, I do actually need some other kind of support. And so it's a learning curve. So I've kind of made a decision to myself that, okay, next time around, I'm going to prepare the space a little bit in advance and see if I can reach out to some people to help me or support me in that department so that I can relax a little bit more. Normally, I find if I have a space, just like what you were saying about your piano room and your plants, and if I have a space to play, I'm much more likely to go and play. But if it's in its covers or if the harp's packed up,
It's gone to bed.
then it's funny, even though it just takes 1 minute to get the instrument out, I'm less likely to do it. But I really, really enjoy going outside and playing, or hearing other people, or listening to a song I love, and then that kind of gets my juices going. How about for you, Char? What do you find enables you to hold that space so the creativity can flow for you?
I feel like art inspires me to create art. And so when I'm doing jobs in my life, whether that be family jobs or, you know, my work jobs, my to-do list, it's almost like the artistic side of me turns off. And maybe a positive way for me to look at it and celebrate myself would be to say that, you know, I put a different hat on and I get that done. But I do find that it's a challenge for me because I can get really swamped by those things. And then, you know, I'll dance to a fantastic song with my children and I could totally race into the other room and say bye and sit down and be creative if I create the space and allow the time to do it. So I feel like this is one of the things that, whether it's for artists or whether it's for people's own well-being, people, for instance, who don't consider themselves artists, is something that parents particularly need to be aware of. Because you mentioned that in your first question there, Hat.
Yeah.
That to have support and have a structure in place where you can create time is absolutely invaluable, and that's something that most parents don't have. You know, whether it is for self-care or whether it is to be creative. And I'm definitely working on that. I could support myself in that way a lot more than I have done. And I've learnt the lesson a few times and then not really gone on to support myself. And then I feel like this past year, we've been very lucky here compared to a lot of places in the world, but we've had periods of time where there's no school, and no school since December. Today was the first day back. Can't help smiling. I missed Juniper today, and Maren, my 2-year-old, was so sweet. She was on the way. I was a little bit late, so I was racing to get to there to pick up, and I had Maren in the backpack because I knew if she was walking with me, she'd be smelling the roses and pointing out worms and things. And so I was like, no, we've got to get there. So I put her on my back, and we were racing there. And on the way, she was saying, I hug Junie. And I was saying, yes, you will. And then I put her down when we got to school, and she ran to Junie and said, I miss you. Which is just sort of learning to express, and it was so sweet. But I'm on a tangent. Of course, I missed Junie today. It was the first time she was away, but I am really glad that she's back at school because, as you say, Ma, you know, children, whether you're unschooling or you're schooling, either way, you have probably some sort of structure in place where the children feel safe and know what their expectations are. My AirPods are down to 1%, so I'm going to switch. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear you. Something's happened with
Yeah, here we go.
the internet here.
Woo. How have you balanced your phones and had them plugged in to your earphones? Ooh. Tempting. I can tell you that I've got socks. Oh, Hattie, you've gone off StreamYard.
Back in.
You're
Hello.
You're in.
If anyone could let us know on Facebook if we're back on, that would be so helpful. I'd love to reflect to you, Charley, that I see you as a mother being so creative every day. And creativity has many forms of expression. It comes from your own channel and your creative space. So I just wanted to reflect to you that though you might not be holding your guitar or singing in any moment, there's so much creativity going on in your space with your cooking and your mothering and how you show up for people and how you're a friend. So I just wanted to reflect that to you, that I see you really creative every day.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I feel like mothering and loving is creation. I mean, it is. I mean, you feel it, don't you? Love is just... I definitely love very strongly. I do have an awareness that, you know, Ma, you were saying you go to the studio and you have that space, which is just that. And I think especially this past year, living in a small home and it being full, you know, we have a sort of Tetris situation where spaces change around to have a different purpose, and I appreciate that we have that. But I think I'd like to work on creating an area in the home which is just mine, and then I can retreat to that space whenever I want and have, without compromise, whatever I need in that space. And I think that would support me artistically too. So
Yeah, I agree. I think when we become a part of a family, it's kind of like it's a unit, and everybody has their own roles in it and their place. And you might want to paint the wall green, but your partner doesn't like green, and or wants to paint it black or blue, or who knows what. And we kind of make these compromises with our partners and who we've built our life with. And sometimes you just want to be in a room that's pink and has flowers everywhere, and like angels or fairies or crystals, or whatever space you kind of want to create for yourself. It's not always the space that you can share with your partner. And I really feel like it makes a huge difference like the minute you have your space and you have it exactly how you want it. There's like, okay, I feel like, okay, there's me, because I lose myself in the family a lot. I'm like, okay, where is me? Like, everybody wants a piece, and everybody's asking for attention, and everybody wants the love and affection, and it is difficult sometimes to know where like what is left for you, at the end of the day. So I do feel like any sort of small thing like that, to have a little space or a little corner, really, really, really helps. Even though it feels banal, it's not.
That makes a lot of sense. Sorry, folks, I've had a little bit of a blip with the internet.
Oh no!
I don't know.
I see you on StreamYard, but Instagram, I didn't realise we've lost you there.
That's okay. Well, I've put the.
I can't hear you on StreamYard. Would it be helpful for me to? Oh yes.
Hooray! We're back on. Sorry about that, everyone. That was my internet here. It's really insightful to hear you both talk about this. And I'm not a mother yet, but I always find it really helpful to hear other people talk about how they do carve space, and also to talk about and hear other people talking about where they find challenges, because somehow it lessens the blow of my own challenges, and I don't know why.
I love it.
I don't know why, it just connects.
I don't want people to have problems, but I love hearing about people's problems.
I could just give you a call tomorrow morning, Charley, as I often do, and just
give me a list.
Make you feel better. Why not? So could I ask you both, when you feel you're onto something creatively exciting, how does it manifest in your body? And how do you support that process? If I could ask you first, Char.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, a comfortable bra is just so underrated. Somebody find me a comfortable bra that is a nice shape.
Oh.
That really helps. I mean, to be wearing clothing, first of all, to do something creative and be wearing clothing that you feel great in. I confess, I have got a rug on and tracksuit bottoms.
Me and elasticated trousers 24/7 these days.
I think reflecting back to, there are a lot of live gigs I've done where I've really hindered feeling it in my body, and it's taken me to the pinnacle of the show to be taken away from my conscious physicality. Whether it be because of something that I've chosen to wear or been asked to wear. I'm talking about clothing again for some reason, but I guess, it can be binding. And I think I do have a lot of self-consciousness, and I guess, to reflect on your question, that disappears when I'm in the moment of real inspiration.
Mm.
And so anything that I can do to support that, whether it's getting a great monitor mix or knowing that the person who's mixing sound is I guess representing me or us in the way that we feel we are, an authentic sound. I definitely noticed that letting go and really feeling that inspiration, the letting go part, sometimes you have to consciously let go and sometimes it happens. And obviously the greatest joy is when you let go without trying. But sometimes you kind of need to have things just so. You need to be able to hear what you want to hear. You need to be able to feel comfortable and feel confident. And I feel like studio-wise, I feel like that's more easily achievable because things are controlled. And I notice this duality in myself where I crave safety in control, but I also crave feeling free and unencumbered of any control. And especially parenting, I love the freeness of children, but I also notice that there are so many things that need to be done that, again, I can be in both of those places. And I try to remind myself that the freer space is nearly always the happier place. And I know our mum always says to us, which I so appreciate, and I try to hear her in my brain, leave everything else. You'll get to it. Leave everything else. And she's right. And I feel like that can also play into creativity when I'm not being a mum. You know, whether we're going back to the thing we were discussing before about to-do lists, or whether we're, in the moment in a live show, to be able to forget everything else and be taken away with the song and the sound is the dream.
It is the dream. Makes a lot of sense, Char. I sometimes, when I'm on stage, I go through a process of letting go every couple of minutes, or few seconds, if I'm feeling particularly nervous or I'm feeling some kind of tension around remembering lyrics or it's a new song, or so I have to kind of be my own parent in those moments, and I let go with ease. I have to have like a narrative. Everything's okay. You've got this. And it's something several other women this week have been sharing, that they do have some kind of self-talk, not only before they go on stage, but once they're on stage, to make them feel supported and held. And when you're talking about your clothes, I think it's very symbolic, because clothes also, they're touching your body and holding that space for you as well. So it makes a lot of sense how you describe that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I feel a little bit frustrated that I'm talking about clothes in a way, but actually it has such a big impact.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we were on tour with Leonard and we wear the suits, I felt both proud, well, equally sort of proud, and really it helped us present the somberness and the, I suppose, weightiness of the material. But there were definitely times where I felt trapped by the corset nature of those suits. And I just wanted to like rip it all off and just wear like a floaty hippie dress, and be able to flow more. Anyway, I'm on clothes for some reason, but Ma, what about you?
I think I just get really excited, when like bubbly sort of excited, and I get all these ideas, and I'm like running between people trying to, if I'm like in the studio and I'm directing people like what I would like them to play, or I become like a really so like an energy ball, I guess. And the challenge then becomes for me to be able to ground myself, enough for me to sort of not float away with it, because it is important, you know, to be grounded when, especially for me, like if I get excited, I just feel like, you know, I fill up with like love and excitement and sort of passion, and all of that is great, but it seems to amount to so much more if I manage to be grounded at the same time, you know, because then it's almost like it's not just kind of like a sort of moment of like fireworks, and then, you know, like what goes up must go down, basically, you know. So then you just, if I'm grounded, it's kind of like it's just sort of perpetual energy, you know, just that's just coming through, rather than like me sort of giving, like just bursting out and then feeling spent afterwards, you know.
Right.
So that's it, that I've gotten better at that, and it's the same on stage. Like if I'm getting like, you know, like excited but also nervous, you know, and it really helps to just kind of, sometimes I just put my attention into my feet, and I just kind of imagine these sort of roots coming from the feet into the ground, and immediately I feel better.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I love the feet grounded, and I often use my breastbone, lifting it a little bit and letting my shoulders relax, because I sometimes get a little bit clenchy. I'd love to share a couple of comments. Jesse Dentale Cha, the artist that we did a gig with at Cafe Nord in San Francisco, he's written on Instagram, he said, "This is so beautiful and interesting. Mothering and loving is creating. And the gracefulness in this room is powerful." So
Jesse,
that's
didn't
so
we share
lovely.
the backspace with him and Brad?
Yes.
So he was there with Brad's dancing.
Yes.
As well. Hey, Jesse.
Yes. And I'd love to share a message also from John. He says, interesting comments about the carving of individual space. Reminds me of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which is such a great book. And Marianne, she says, you ladies are a true inspiration. Thank you. And you really are. Something I've been exploring in myself as a recovering perfectionist is about making mistakes, being okay with the mistakes, not beating myself up or self-flagellating, and to relax and feel like it's all part of the process. But that takes vulnerability. And I think in my younger years, I was more brittle and unable to be vulnerable. And therefore, it took me going through a change of recognizing that brittleness was hurting me, and probably my community as well, probably hurt you, Charley, and my attitude was not so flexible. And I think that's something I've been aware of taking responsibility more of in myself, making mistakes, acknowledging where I've gone wrong, being more relaxed about it and laughing or enjoying my mistakes, like enjoying who I am, even my perfections, which I still struggle with. I'd love to hear from you both where you've realized that some mistake or imperfection has actually led to growth or understanding or compassion. And if you'd be willing to share something about that. Over to you, Ma, if you don't mind going first.
Sure, yeah. I'm a perfectionist as well. And, you know, I have very high standards for myself, you know, and I sort of project that onto my environment as well, and people that I work with. But, you know, usually I actually just, now that I'm thinking about it, I have also a lot of trust towards people. Like if I decide to work with somebody, you know, I show them a lot of trust, because I'm like, I'm working with them for some reason, and I want them to contribute of themselves rather than me trying to, you know, control the outcome too much. But I have noticed that I seem to sort of, sometimes I work a lot with my partner Mio, like we create everything together, and
Mio.
Hi, Mio.
And you know, it's just my favorite person to work with in general. And sometimes, you know, because we're so close and we work so closely together, that sort of like thing, the attitude I have towards myself sometimes, leaks towards him, and I become sort of perfectionist towards him, or like just kind of like I assume that he already knows that I love what he does and how he does it, and then I'll be quicker to point out things that need fixing rather than the things I'm really happy with. So sometimes I have to watch myself with that, of like I kind of appreciate, because he's really showing me what it's like to be on the other side, playing the role of being the one not really making music or playing an instrument, but just really being of service, to what is happening, and sort of being really egoless about it in a way, and that you don't really, never expects really even that much, but just for me to come into the room and listen to what we're working on, be like, I really love this and I love that, before I go, well, that's really not right yet, and that's that needs fixing. Like, that's been a big sort of, I'm still working on that, and I'm realizing how important it is to always give the encouragement before the criticism, in a way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when people in the space feel appreciated, it's almost like appreciation is an energy, and it just it holds everyone. It is a wonderful quality in a space. I really love that. I'm going to put that in my box of tools. How about you, Char?
Yeah, I can relate to Ma saying that, because you work so closely with Mio, that there's a lot that you assume he knows that you're thinking or doing, and Hat and I, working together for so many years and from such a young age, we genuinely do often know what each other are thinking, and a lot of the time, and then sometimes I think I know what she's thinking and I'm wrong, and I don't check in with that, and then I might find myself maybe hurt or upset or even miscommunicating, because I'm not actually saying, oh, was it this? Are you saying that? Are you feeling this? And I guess it comes down to communication, and I think we do a really good job actually of celebrating each other's things that we do right, probably because we both recognise that we could use a boost.
Yeah.
But I definitely could work on the communication aspect when things aren't so right inside of me, or I'm worried about something, or I think you don't like something, and I feel like the communication is good with other people that we work with in a musical space. But business wise, I sometimes reflect over the last 20 years of people that we've worked with, and I might be straying from your question now.
Please stray.
I can't remember exactly what the question was now. I'm on a roll, but I do notice how, when I think back to like 18 years ago, and we knew who we were musically, but business-wise, I felt strong, and yet I felt that people that we worked with didn't necessarily want us to be strong energetically.
Yeah.
There was a lot of either verbally or energetically telling us that that was not our role, and that other people knew better, and that we, should be listening to what they told us to do. And I regret listening, because actually I feel like young artists today, when I say young, we're all young too, but I mean some of the really young artists that seem to show such maturity now, and so much courage. I'm so inspired by that. And I read in an interview with a woman, and a woman talking about her children, and saying that her daughter had this great sense of what was the word? Entitlement. And I feel like traditionally, of course, entitlement is a dirty word because it sort of negates appreciation or sensitivity. Whereas I feel like for women and for children and young women, I really am inspired by that sense of entitlement, and I wish in a way that we've been able to hold on to a little bit more of that when we were super new artists.
Yeah.
And I like that. I want that for my daughters, that they're not questioning themselves deeply about whether they deserve something, because they deserve everything that they feel that they are. And I feel that we all do. And of course, most people are not lucky enough to have what they deserve. I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about life experience, I suppose. But
yeah. I remember when we were first signed to Universal in LA, and Array and Our Lady put us in the studio for 3 or 4 tracks with Charlie Sexton producing.
yeah.
And I remember you and I having a conversation saying, we know he's not right to produce this body of work. He's amazing, but he doesn't feel right to us intuitively. But we said, but we'll give it a go because, you know, they all think it's a really good idea. I mean, now I think you and I would say he's phenomenal and we really respect him. Though we're feeling like something else could be better right now, and then communicating that. But when I was 22, I thought all the people that have been doing it longer know more about my creativity than I do. That was kind of my go-to setting. So I really relate to what you're saying there. Yeah. Something that's come up as a theme this week is about community and women, not only in the workplace, but in our creative communities. And I've heard people talk about it in 2 quite different ways. One way is that their community of women artists or friends are so essential to their creative process, to their grounding, to their positivity, love and support. And another is how much opposition and cruelty they've experienced when other women feel like they have to protect their space, so that they attack to make sure that no one else takes over in their space. And it's been really interesting hearing other people's stories, accounts and experiences. For me, I've felt both of that. I've felt so supported and I've felt so seen, and I've so seen other people and loved their essence and want to support in any way. And then I felt so attacked that I'm finding it really hard to even go to a gig every day. And so I'd love to ask you what your experiences have been, and how, if there is this element of competition, how do we disarm it? How do we reassure each other? How do we communicate? It's not about one person being bad or wrong. It's about perhaps insecurity, some kind of animalistic, primal response. And I think I'd love to hear both of your opinions on this.
I haven't really experienced any sort of meanness per se, you know, or competition in terms of not to an extent I would be aware of it at least, but I have experienced, you know, I've recognized what you're talking about in terms of, because I mean I have the same thing, love community, love being feeling in a community of women supporting each other, and have experienced a lot of that. And I've experienced a lot less of the sort of competition and sort of, and at least in music, you know, I have experienced it in terms of relationships and things like that, love, and but I feel like, as opposed to attack per se, I've sort of experienced not being included, you know, and like being excluded from like a space or an energy, or, you know, I have experienced that a few times, and I feel like the best way of disarming that in a way was was extending an invitation from my end, you know. So in a way, like not mirroring that energy, but going the opposite direction, and having like a welcoming sort of approach myself, you know, because I think like women expect that if you toward, if you, what do you say, direct that kind of thing towards another woman, you know, it's like expected that it becomes mutual thing, you know. But in a way, by not reacting towards it, and in a kind of a mirroring way, it leaves it a little bit sort of impotent in a way, you know. It kind of breaks the spell, I have found.
Yeah.
And for with women that it doesn't, you know, I've sometimes met women who don't have any interest in connecting with other women. They're like happy to be the lone woman in a man's world or something, you know, because then they get to be the goddess there, and you know, and feel in control of that energy, and I don't understand it personally, but I recognize that that's just what their where the comfort level is, you know. And those women have not, you know, even over time, they have not really become my friends, or there hasn't necessarily been a connection between us, you know. So it's kind of like we're part of different worlds. But my thing is always inclusion. I love that. I love, you know, feeling like everybody's welcome, and everybody's, you know, there's sort of space for everyone, basically, because I believe there is, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Your hands reaching around the world Oscar speech all over again now.
Yes,
Inclusion.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely experienced those feelings that you mentioned, where there's a strong negative elements a few times in collaborations. And I think sometimes people feel how they feel, and it doesn't benefit to fight it or to challenge it always. Sometimes, of course, it does. Sometimes people need to be called out for, you know, I hate to think of bullying or specifically targeting anybody, and obviously we have that as a very important consideration in our world today. But I think sometimes, especially in creative spaces, allowing people to be the way they are allows a flow, and it's sometimes quite uncomfortable and painful. And I've really admired sometimes how the way you're able to press pause and address something with somebody in a moment where I either didn't have the courage, or I felt like for me it wasn't the time. And you sometimes have in those moments. And I admit I've felt like, eek, I can't participate in that. But really admired your courage in doing so, and noticed a dissipation of that energy afterwards. Because you've been upfront, you've been empathetic, you said, what can I do? You said, here's what's making me uncomfortable. And I think you approach those moments really well.
I think my big thing that I've said is, your light is so bright that no one can dissipate that. Not me, not anyone. And I respect your space, and I respect my space too. And I hope we can both stand together and support each other. That's been my feeling on it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I need to take a tiny break.
Sure.
Just put my earphones down for a moment and I'll
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'll be right back.
In fact, Ma, I'd love to ask.
Fascinating.
Oh,
Have fun.
I'd love to ask you, Ma, about a couple of songs, if I may. Of course, I just love your songwriting and your singing. And can you share a little bit about your song, "Forgive Me, Lover"? It's one of my absolute favorites, and how that song came to fruition.
Yes, that song was actually a letter of apology that I wished I had received myself, because I didn't, and I knew I probably never would. And I found, like, if I just did it, and maybe I would find closure on it easier. And I mean, that was the initial, because I experienced at one point a lot of heartache, and I loved somebody very dearly and deeply, and things didn't end the way I would have wished. And it was a lot. It took a lot for me to sort of untangle, the sort of the roots, I guess, that had sort of grown in between us. And it was kind of, it shocked me in a way, the way it ended. And I had taken a lot of time to process it, and even longer than I thought. Even when I thought, like, okay, now I've kind of, I've got a handle on this, I still didn't. So it was one of those, like, big things in my life. And this song was kind of like, I was approaching a place of sort of surrender to it, because I was tired of fighting against it, or hoping that it would be different, or sort of having some sort of disbelief towards it in general. And I was like, okay, this is what it is. And I wrote it from perspective of thinking, like, this is what I would have loved to hear. And over the years, when I've sort of thought about the song, or heard it, or even when I was performing it still with the Swell season, I kind of almost thought about it as me, also asking for my own forgiveness, because I see it now from the perspective of an older person, that I had put myself in situations where I had opened myself up for pain, and for disappointment, and and all of that. And I didn't protect myself enough in certain situations. And now, as I just turned 33, and me now, like, can sort of think of myself of when I was younger, and sort of almost want to give myself a hug, and be like, I know that was hard, and you got through it, it taught you a lot of things. And it feels like the energy of it was kind of like water, it's kind of sort of like took it, whatever I was feeling, the ocean sort of took it and sort of carried it, and it became, the weight sort of like wasn't mine anymore to carry, I sort of let it go. And it was an important lesson in terms of, like, how healing music can be, that how song is not always just a song, it can be medicine, like to sort of paraphrase you in a way in your new project, it's just like, I think that's my biggest attraction to music, after all, anyway, the idea that it can heal, it can heal wounds, it can help us overcome things that seemed not possible to overcome. And that song was, I think, one of the first ones I had written in that vein. Now I've become much more accustomed to that kind of writing, which I love. But yeah, that song was a kind of medicine that I needed at the time myself.
It's really interesting, because I put the song on when I feel heartbroken, or I want to feel embraced in my own melancholy. And it makes so much sense that it's written to you, or from a perspective that, yeah, it's just really, really insightful to hear you talk about it. I just love it so much. And the way the bass ebbs and flows like the sea in a circular motion. It's such a wonderful song. And how about the song If You Want Me?
That song I was writing for the movie once, and it was actually I remember being sort of working on it half in Czech, half in Dublin when Glenn and I were working together, and I just had this kind of like the chords and the melody, and we had like a little Casio player that Glenn owned, that he sort of like was playing along with, and that became the beat in the recording, and in a way the production of that song was just the Casio beat, guitar, and some bass and vocals, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people connect with the song, and how many people, how many covers that I've heard of the song. I just find it incredible because, to me the song is kind of like, it is kind of knowing your own worth, and being able to sort of, there's something, there is not uncompromising, but just something that shows sort of inner strength, I think, in terms of towards another person, and I don't think I've written many songs like that, but and originally the lyric was actually if you love me, satisfy me, and then Glenn suggested I change it to if you want me, which I think actually made the song in a way,
Yeah, it's amazing how one word can do that. It can change the whole perspective or the angle.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It creates more tension, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I chime in and ask, so were you working on a lot of those songs before you had a finished screenplay?
Yes.
Wow. Because, I mean, as a person experiencing the story, the music is really so intrinsic to seeing the characters. I think it really adds to the wonderment and the just incredible talent that you both have, that you were able to write such visceral, emotional songs that were really true for those characters in the story without having known exactly the flow.
Yeah, maybe it was a little bit of synchronicity, in a way of just sort of time warp, past, present, and future all happening at the same time. Or maybe it was just the fact that me and Glenn, we brought a lot of ourselves sort of into the story. The script was written not about us. It was written before the director had met me anyway. He didn't know anything about me or the fact that me and Glenn had been collaborating when he had written the script. But somehow he saw us play live in Whelan's, in a bar in Dublin, and then he saw it. He saw this is the chemistry that I've been looking for the movie, and so it maybe then makes sense on that level, that it's sort of the art and life, they just sort of merged in a way, and it was like a crossover of some sort, and the fact that we never even had names in the movie, it sort of helped to keep that line very thin in a way, because we were just guy and girl, and so we didn't have character names and our real names, and it was just like people, when we did Q&As after the movies, when it was shown around America, when it premiered, we did Q&As, and we went up on the stage and we played some songs and we answered questions, and I would be asked things like, where's your daughter now? I mean, some people really had no idea that it wasn't a documentary, because it was so blurry, the line, because they just saw us in the movie and then they saw us on stage, and it's not even like we were dressed differently,
Right.
We were kind of dressed the same. We had our names, and we were like, there was a real chemistry and real connection and love between us, and so it was really difficult for people to separate us from the movie. So in that sense, I guess it makes sense. It wasn't. It was just we sort of merged with the story, and the story became us, and we the story. And I heard somebody made a quote of life. No, art imitates life, and soon enough, life starts imitating art. And I have
Yeah.
found that to be true, honestly, in life. It's very interesting.
When you were writing Falling Slowly, did you feel like it was a special song? And did it begin with a musical idea or a lyric, or where was the seed for the song?
I remember it so well. We were in my parents' house in Czech Republic, and I was making. Glenn and I were in the kitchen, and we were making tea, so the kettle was boiling, or we were boiling water to make us a cup of tea. And Glenn was just sort of leaning on the dinner table with his guitar and plucking something, and I just sort of turned to him and I was like, "What is that?" Because I knew I didn't recognize it off of any record, and he said, "No, it's nothing. It's just you like it." And I was like, "Yeah, I think it's really really beautiful." And so he said, "Well, why don't we just go and work on it and see what happens?" So we had gone to the piano, which was in my room, and before we knew it, we had like written because what he was playing was the verse, the na 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 na, and then we wrote the bridge and the chorus, and then we like it happened really quickly, and then we went back to the kitchen and we were like, we wrote a song to my parents, and we played it to them, and that was it. It was like one of those sort of half channeled songs, I think.
Yeah,
Wow.
like
And
it existed somehow.
Yeah,
already.
yeah, absolutely. Like we were pulling the sort of notes from the ether or something. It was beautiful.
And
And-
art imitating life, I feel like that's how you presented it in the movie too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was John. He was very smart that way, because he knew that, like, if he allowed us to sort of grow to become the characters, and for the characters to become us, it would feel more real. So he told us in the music shop, like, so I want you to be like you're teaching her the song, and she's trying to, you're trying to learn it, and we've done that 100 times together. Where he was teaching me something he wanted me to play along with. So it was very very easy to just sort of do that, as if it was a song I didn't know.
It's beautiful. It's so wonderful to hear you talk about it. And did you both have ideas for the lyrics? Were the lyrics coming out quite just in the flow?
I remember Glenn wrote all the lyrics to the verses, and I had helped him with the choruses. Like at the time, I was still just learning to write lyrics. To be honest, I hadn't become very good at it at all. But I knew the kind of energy I felt like the chorus should have, and so
Yeah.
it became about that.
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
love it.
I know we're coming to the end of our chapter here, and I'd love to just ask some more quick fire questions, if it's possible, to close with, if that's okay with you both.
Sure.
Can you talk back? Sorry, can you talk about a day you look back on with joy? Charley?
Yeah, I mean, many. It was in the autumn. I think it was November. A wonderful memory with you. We went into the studio just for one evening, and we recorded together for Wesley's record. And I had so much fun because I loved the songs. I love working in the studio together, and Wesley's artistry and the way he'd created the versions of the songs that he had recorded left space, and he and Simon Felici, the producer, had, I guess, encouraged us to create our own sounds in between to support Wesley and I just felt like we had a free artistic space, and I absolutely loved that evening.
Me too. Me too. How about you, Ma?
The biggest one is definitely the Oscars. I was thinking, like, when you asked, and it's always the one that comes in on my mind first. There were many happy days and joyful memories, but there's just no comparison with that day.
Wow, so special, and so
Especially
inspiring.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we had we got to bring 5 people each. Me and Glenn, we guests at the ceremony. So we we had our families with us, and it was just precious. Like, I had my mom and my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and my granddad. It was the first time he had gone to America. My mom and dad, and just we were staying at this in my friend's house in Los Angeles. She was so generous. She made these cookies in Oscar-shaped cookies for everybody to eat, and she got like a makeup woman over to the house for the women. It was like I've never had like a day like that since. Just pure celebration, of like a really important moment, and in a way it didn't matter. Like, the funny part about it is that the thing we were actually excited about was playing our song on that stage. That felt like that's the highlight, to be on that stage in front of all those people and to play our song. And I know we had gone to the Grammys like the week before, 2 weeks before, I can't remember, and I didn't like that so much. It felt pretentious and sort of the energy was all wrong, and I expected the Oscars would be the same, and it wasn't. It was like everybody walking into the room everybody was just as excited as we were. I mean, you could feel it, whether you were Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie or us. Everybody had the same level of excitement of, this is the main event of the year, and we're getting to come to it. And we have a we have a horse in the race, or we're gonna see all our friends and all the people we collaborate and all the people we aspire towards, or feel inspired by, and it was just a magnificent thing. Yeah, that will be the top forever, I think.
I love in the footage of that where the camera pans and you can see the faces and the eyes of other people who are looking at you with such admiration and adoration. And that's another thing that I love about watching that. And I noticed again today, I think it's Laura Dern or someone, you're doing your speech, and she's looking up at you like, yes, you're amazing.
I love that.
And you are, and you were, and it's just it's such a beautiful moment that hopefully you were able to witness just how many people were celebrating you.
Yeah, we were feeling it, absolutely.
Amazing.
Second to last question, what is a recent favourite song or piece of music or art or creativity that you keep coming back to at the moment? Over to you, Ma.
I've just discovered an artist called Rosalia, which I'm really enjoying the music of. It's kind of, I don't know how, I kind of stumbled on it somehow, and I love it. It's a mixture of flamenco and pop and the voice. I find all that types of singing, like Iranian sort of singing, or whether it's flamenco or just the sort of tribal energy in the voice expressions, I find really cool. So I find it amazing to see somebody as young as her, so talented and really going for it in the world. I think it's great. So I've listened to the last track which you put out quite a lot, and I love your new project. It's really, really inspiring. It's something I just really connect with, and I'm so proud of you, and so proud for our connection to strengthen and blossom into this beautiful friendship, and just thank you so much for I was so honored by this invitation. I want to say that before we finish our chat, I was just really, really, really honored. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm honored that you both are here. Thank you. And Char, how about you for piece of music or something creative that you're coming back to a lot?
I think because it's been a very intense time recently, and I know so many people can relate to that because of the unusual nature of COVID restrictions mean that there isn't much space for anybody, I guess. Most families are very much together all the time, and I'm a homebody. I love that a lot of the time, but I've had to figure out ways to feel that sense of space without actually having it. And I discovered, how I'm not usually a massive fan of jazz. I really appreciate some jazz, but I don't often find myself listening to it, like drawn to going to put it on. Though I appreciate it and jazz musicians so much. I discovered this pianist called Joel Lisseredes. Do you know him, either of you?
No.
His music is just, it kind of does what you were saying earlier, Hat. It makes you put your shoulders down and go. And I find any of his pieces, they do that. So I'm really enjoying his catalogue and discovering new works by him.
Well, thanks for that. I love tips. I'm going to check both those artists out. And final question, what are you looking forward to for you, Charley?
I'm definitely looking forward to things opening up. I feel like I need that, and I feel like so many people need that. I just would really appreciate the feeling of opportunity and possibility. I feel like that's a really important thing for humanity, and there have been a lot of silver linings in what we've all experienced. I'm sure many people have had no silver linings. I know I'm really lucky and privileged, but just to feel like anything's possible again, I'm really looking forward to that. Seeing people I love, going to places that I love, and hopefully we'll all be able to meet up and continue our creations together, the three of us.
Amazing. Thank you, Charley. How about you, Ma? What are you looking forward to?
Really looking forward to seeing my family, who I miss a lot. And, really this time is, I was already there anyway, because we live so far away from each other. It's sort of, it taught me to appreciate the moments of togetherness that we have to share. And the sort of knowing that, like I'm noticing myself getting older, and then I look at my parents, and sometimes I get like, God, at some point they were eternal. The idea of them not being in the world was so far removed from my mind, and my consciousness, and now I'm realizing, we're not here forever. And so I just feel this kind of desperate longing to sort of share moments with them and share time, and it feels sometimes difficult that it's kind of like the possibility just isn't there, but it just makes me all the more excited for when it is there. I really, really want to appreciate it in a way that I probably never have before, so that's kind of like, that's one thing I really look forward to.
I really relate to that. If people would like to reach out to you both on social media or any other platform, what's the best way for people to reach out or find your music? And Charley and Ma, what's the best place for people to reach out to you both?
I think my Instagram. You could private message me, no problem, on Instagram. And your little char guitar. Oh yeah, I'm Little Char Guitar. Great. But I'm sure if you search Charley Webb, then you'd find me. Charley Webb would pop up. And how about you, Ma?
Yeah, Instagram has actually become the place for me too. Really enjoy it. Really enjoy it. like following up with people there and communicating with people there. So that's probably the best place.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much to Charley Webb and Markéta Irglová for taking this time today and talking and sharing your feelings, and it's been really, really a powerful experience this week. And thank you to all the women who have given their time and energy to have these discussions. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram who've followed this series, and for your really insightful thoughts and your support, because I feel like support is so invaluable for all of us. So thank you so much, wondrous women. Love and respect you both so much.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day, wonderful mums and friends, and to everyone out there, thank you so much, and love and gratitude to you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ma. Thanks, Cha. Bye.